am Joe Krycia, and I had the pleasure of setting Justin Cook's amazing poetry to music over the past few weeks. I'll say a few things about the poem before I talk about what I did to it musically.
So this poem, the title of the poem is Latin, and I don't really know how to speak Latin, so I'm just going to read it in English, which means, "We hope for better things, it shall rise from the ashes." And that's actually the motto of the city of Detroit. And this poem is about, it's an elegy for my grandfather, who was big in the arts in Detroit throughout his whole life, starting in the 60s, 70s, 80s, and he was a very wild and creative man, and very much inspired me and is one of the main influences of why I do art. So this poem is kind of dedicated to him and how I can resurrect his spirit and his life through my words and my art.
All right, so I really like the pacing of this poem. That was one thing caught my eye right away. I saw it in two sections, even though it's divided in several stanzas. And the first section, he's talking a lot about the physical event of his grandfather dying, being in the hospital, and the events that happened that night. And it's very calm in tone, but very somber, so very dark. So I don't want to say spoil too much about the surprises I have in store musically, but the tone of the first half of this piece is it's very dark and somber, but there's a few moments of clarity that kind of represent this realization I think Justin had that he knows that he shouldn't be angry because his grandfather's not coming back, but he is gone and that is something to be sad about. And the second half changes to the scene of being in downtown Detroit. He talks about being down in the Cass corridor and things like that, and seeing the spirit of his grandfather in the city. So for the second half, I made it a lot more upbeat because it's definitely an increased amount of positivity in the second half. And I used some musical styles that are home to the city of Detroit that are a little surprising when they come in, but I'll say that for when it comes in. So, Justin, do you want to read it now? Yeah.
We hope for better things, it shall rise from the ashes. We buried him in tie-dye, that's all I remember. I never kissed his bristled white mustache goodbye. The last night he was alive, I was playing with Legos at the hospital. We exited the room. They opened his chest and split his rib cage. The hallways bled through our home, painted red. Night passed. I awoke, spinning kind of blue. Fuzzy revolutions, needle to groove. Embers, ether, ashes. I dug up his pocket notebooks of to-do lists, jokes, poems. The watercolor cowboy rode off on an Appaloosa to paint the sunset. He doesn't even kiss his girl goodbye. Canopic sketches extracted from the DIA. Transmigrating, face to face, I shed watermarks. The streets of our city, hieroglyphic graffiti, glass shards like embers of the sun, all eroding this industrial desert. I walked the pyramids of Cass Corridor, envisioning the tribe my Grandpa Joe rode off with in a psychedelic haze. Down Woodward, emitting grand circus rays, revolving. Streets like spokes of a still wheel to the spirit of Detroit, balancing family and holy light dipped in gold. I cleanse my eyes, stain paintbrushes in the river tie-dyed with sunlight, bleeding through notebooks, my watermarks, the grandson's ascent, resurrecting Ra.